Here is where Ayok Tabe made a mistake. You cannot sit in Nigeria and decide who will run America. You select all these people because you see them on social media, and that was the beginning of the destruction of the diaspora. I'm mentioning this because I am seeing something that is happening with our liberation fighters trying to gain control of the struggle. It's a very brilliant idea, but we need to do it properly. Thanks for joining me on this show, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Augustine Ambe. I always feel excited coming to share ideas with you because everything that you see in life, everything that you see, any development that you see begins with a thought in the mind and is transmitted to other people through communication. And so by having communication with you, I feel we are sharing and communing with each other so that we can make ourselves better. And so every time I come on a show with you, I'm excited to share with you. And whenever I cannot make a show, either because it's summer and I'm traveling around a lot, or just engage in other things that take me away from doing a show, I think about every show that I did not do. And so today, I am really, I don't want to use the word force, but I had to make time to do this show. And the reason why I made time to do this show was because in this struggle, in the struggle of Ambazonians to liberate themselves from colonial control, and this colonial control has been going on for over 100 years. Over 100 years. Okay? Because when Europeans used to come to Africa and capture Africans and sell as slaves, sell like animals, to go and work in their farms, those that stayed in Africa were free. Okay? So they captured relatives, they captured, humans have been very cruel. Very, very cruel. And I don't think there's any other race in this world that has received the cruelty of other humans than Africans. But the point I want to make is that for over 400 years, when Europeans came and hunted Africans down and captured them, put them in the hulls of ships, treated them like cattle, sold them to work in their farms and around the world, those that stayed in Africa were relatively free. They were free to live their lives. But then when the slave trade ended, the Europeans did not leave Africans alone. The colonizers did not leave Africans alone. I think the story of 1884 has been a long told story, where they met and decided to carve Africa for themselves. And since then, other African countries have been freed. Nigeria, for example, was free in 1960. Kenya and the rest, all of them freed. Relatively, but they were freed. I'm not mentioning any Francophone country because those are still yet to be free. And I needed to say this because when it came time for our own freedom in 1960, actually, Godidinka will tell you that we're actually programmed to be free in 1958, because 1958 was when the British reported to the UN that we're ripe for independence. But that independence wasn't given to us. Through the manipulations that were going on at the time, it had to be manipulated until in 1961, they took us and gave us to the French. Until today, the French and its appointed representative in their colony of La République du Cameroun have admitted that when we were given over to the French goal was to assimilate us. So when they took over Ambazonia, they destroyed the more advanced system of living, the more advanced economic independence, the more advanced legal system, the more advanced democracy and freedom that the people of then called Southern Cameroons were enjoying. They destroyed all of that and started what Paul Biya, a French representative in the French colony of La République du Cameroun, said a few years back in Paris, that when they took over, their job was to assimilate us. You cannot assimilate something without destroying everything that is there. And in 2017, Ambazonians said we are going to take back our country, and that is where we are today. I am here today because I am in this particular broadcast because when the lawyers started protesting on the ground, I knew right away that this is something big. That this is something big. I'm talking about 2015 when I read somewhere, because when the lawyers started talking, it was about 10 years when even all the political activities in the diaspora, because that's really where most of the activists were, or that's where I was, and I know that diaspora activism had died. It actually died in 2008, after Professor Anyangwe, as the leader of what was at the time called the Restoration Government, did not move as fast or as far as he wanted to. But he put a lot of effort. I remember he came and toured the United States, and I do have the tape. At some point I will share a town hall with you that the very able and capable Professor Carlson Anyangwe did, and no other person who took over our struggle like that, except maybe Julius Ayok-Tabe, did the kind of work that he did. But after that, things died down. And so in 2015, I read somewhere on social media that the lawyers were protesting and they did not want the support or any money from the diaspora because that would come in and divide them. I was very excited. Obviously, we know 2016 and then 2017, September 22nd, 2017, the whole of Ambazonia was on the street. The whole of Ambazonia came out to reject the continuous colonization of the people of Ambazonia for over 100 years. They rejected it. And when they rejected it on November 30, 2017, Paul Biya, the French representative in the French colonial La République du Cameroon came out and declared war against the people of Ambazonia. At that point, they thought they were going to solve their own problem, but that was the beginning of the next stage of Ambazonian liberation. So Paul Biya declared war on Ambazonians, and they thought they were going to go do it in a very short time. They didn't. But what I really want to concentrate on here today is that right from the beginning, I always knew since 2015 that the lawyers coming on, the teachers joining them, the 22nd of September 2017, before they declared that this is all ground action, and we in the diaspora had tried. We have done everything, but it always ended with us because we never could connect with the ground. So when the ground took it, I'm like, this is the beginning of the end of our colonization. We in the diaspora should support the people on the ground. We should support the teachers. We should support the struggle on the ground to cut it short. But some people say, oh no, we have been in this thing. You've heard of some people calling others Johnny Just Come and all that nonsense. Those are people who voted with their feet out of the struggle. They did not stay to fight. The lawyers who even have more education and more ability to survive in any other society in the world did not take off. People who had nothing took off. And came and were making what I would say noise in the West, because that's what we in the diaspora were doing the whole time. It was noise. Because nobody was listening, even the Ground Zero wasn't listening. But now Ground Zero took over, and it was taken over by lawyers and teachers. I said this, and they were saying all the right things. They were saying we don't need the diaspora's money, we need to fight this thing our own because the money will come and destroy our struggle. And it did. Instead of the diaspora supporting the struggle on the ground, they came with the dollars and they instead wanted to take over the struggle. It's been a disaster. It's been a disaster. I remember a few years back, Terence Bangawakai said, we are just 5 minutes into the struggle. And so the long struggle was still in front of us. And he was predicting to me. In that whole diaspora chaos, mismanagement, he was saying that the people on the ground one day will decide that the diaspora has been a disaster and they will take over the fight. Because, according to him, the people on the ground are learning. It is their fight. They live it every day. Recently, I read a post where the Ground Zero fighters are coming together. They've named their 2 spokespeople. They are asserting control not only of the ground but of the struggle itself. That makes me really happy, and that is what disrupted my summer events, my summer vacation, if you want to call it that, in order to come and talk to you about what the ground just did. We have more seasoned fighters on the ground now, and they are beginning to assert themselves as the leaders of our struggle. And that when they do that, it would only give us the supporting role that we should have had in the first place, or that we had in the first place, but we thought we knew everything and took over the struggle. When I say we, I'm including us as part of diaspora, but I was not part of that nonsense. I always knew that our fighters are on the ground, our leaders are on the ground, the struggle needs to be won on the ground. And the people on the ground know the ground better than anybody else. And if there's ever going to be a government, it will be a government of the people for the people on the ground in Ambazonia. And so the leadership that the ground forces are beginning to take now is getting me very excited. Very excited. And I would tell you that I just read something a few days ago. Maybe I think this came out last week. It was talking about compulsory liberation tax for every southern Cameroonian citizen, home and abroad. So, Ground Zero forces are coming together. I am going to read to you the whole statement they made. Compulsory liberation tax for every southern Cameroonian citizen, home and abroad. We, the freedom fighters in the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, hereby remind every southern Cameroonian Ambazonian citizen of their compulsory duty towards the nation. In every country in the world, it is compulsory that citizens pay taxes to their government. Before French Cameroon colonized Ambazonia, citizens paid their taxes to the government in Boya. For 60 years under colonial occupation by French Cameroon, Ambazonians paid their taxes to Yaoundé. Since the restoration of our independence in 2017, Ambazonian citizens stopped paying taxes to the nation of Ambazonia. In every nation in the world, tax evasion is considered a very big crime which is punishable to the fullest extent of the law. The Southern Cameroonian Ambazonian is not an exception. The Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia is not a tax-free nation, even under colonial occupation. For 6 years, we have been busy fighting, while counting on our citizens' spontaneous sense of patriotism to support the struggle. But for the past 5 to 6 years, it has not been the case. Hence, the change of policy. After a very intensive deliberation among us, the freedom fighters, we arrived at the following conclusion. Every person born in the southern Cameroons living both home and abroad must commit and pay a liberation tax. Every citizen has the right to choose which liberation movement to fund financially. Freedom fighters at their checkpoints will control the payment of liberation tax. Citizens from the diaspora who are visiting the country must show proof of payment of liberation tax to any liberation or humanitarian movement of their choice, both home and abroad, for the past 6 years. Recommended structure for payment: 1. Any general of their choice. 2. Your local government area, home or abroad. 3. War Relief Fund by state elders. 4. Ambazonian Governing Council, AGOV-C. 5. SOCADEF. 6. IG Group of Siseko, Julius, Tabe, and Yerima. 7. IG Group of Ikome, Samuel Sako. 8. IG Group of Chris Anu and Marianta. 9. Aya Foundation. 10. Southern Cameroon's European Women. 11. Takumbeng. Implementation strategy: 1. Vigorous control of liberation tax at checkpoints on ground zero. 2. We assume anyone living in the diaspora can afford at least $1 per month for homeland security. 3. We assume anyone living in the diaspora who does not donate at least $1 a month for homeland security is responsible for lack of tools and materials to defend ourselves. 4. Freedom fighters will perform regular checks on ground zero to find out from parents and relatives if their children abroad are contributing for homeland security. Diasporans should send their receipts to their parents, which will be presented during controls. 5. Anyone from the diaspora who cannot prove payment of freedom tax of at least $1 a month since 2018 will be arrested and kept indefinitely until taxes are paid. 6. Diaspora citizens are warned to pay all taxes owed and current before traveling to the country. 7. Southern Cameroon citizens on Ground Zero and neighboring countries like French Cameroon, Nigeria, Gabon, and Guinea pay at least 100 francs monthly to any general of their choice. 8. No citizen will be killed or harmed for not paying of liberation tax, but shall be kept indefinitely until the taxes are paid. 9. Abuse of the taxation system by scammers, thieves, and kidnappers shall not be tolerated. Any abuse by criminals must be reported to freedom fighters. So that's the statement that they put out. I really can't express how excited I am that they are taking this role. But just the same as when the law, let me just go back again to the lawyers. If you saw what the lawyers did, the lawyers wrote petitions to the government, and in those petitions they told the government, if we do not get a response from you by this date, this is what we will do. And when they did not, they started agitating. Then the government, the colonial government, went and beat up the lawyers. So the lawyers had a plan. They had a plan. Now, when the thing blew up and everybody joined and it became the struggle of the people of Ambazonia to free themselves from colonial occupation, it took a different dynamics. It took a dynamic where there was not so much planning. They had the wrong people in the wrong places and they took the wrong decisions. There were even times when they had the right people in the right place, but because there was no planning, the wrong decisions were made. I'm going to give you one. Having experienced Siseko Ayok Tabe up front and having seen him perform out there in different venues, I think he was actually the right guy. He had the right temperament, he had the right personality. He was a guy who could speak very clearly on his feet, very charming, very humble. So he was the right guy. But the planning and the blueprint of what happened was not the best. Because first, we don't need to name a government. Because we do certain things because they help us in our struggle and help define the struggle and help define how we fight the struggle. And so when we say we have restored our independence, it doesn't mean we have restored it. We've restored it in our minds. We've restored it, and I'm smiling because, yes, things have to start in our mind before we even realize them in reality. So we have restored our independence in our minds, but our independence has not been realized. And so we cannot be acting. We cannot be acting as though our independence is already realized, as though we don't have enemies still in our territory, running around, continuing the destruction that they've been doing for over 100 years. They've been different enemies at different times, but all of them as a group are enemies. People sit them quiet and you come with guns and you start shooting them and take over their land and mess them up, and it's very uncivilized behavior, and it's still happening today. So they're all enemies. And I just wanted to say, here is where Ayok Tabe made a mistake. You cannot sit in Nigeria and decide who will run America. You select all these people because you see them on social media, and that was the beginning of the destruction of the diaspora. I'm mentioning this because I am seeing something that is happening with our liberation fighters trying to gain control of the struggle. It's a very brilliant idea, but we need to do it properly. And I'm going to go through what I just read to you and tell you problem areas. I made some notes to myself. First, let me say something about our how we call ourselves. In 1990, I filmed a piece where Gojidinka came to the University of Minnesota where I was, and he made a presentation about Ambazonia. That day was the first day. I remember that day very well. That was the first day I heard the name Ambazonia. But he laid his case, and it was so clean that Asanga, who was actually the main speaker, in 1990, SDF was still being created, and it was the talk of the town. So when we invited Siga Asanga to come and make the presentation, Gojidinka came more as somebody who was an afterthought. But by the time he left, Gojidinka already, the whole questioning during the event was about Gojidinka and his ideas of Ambazonia and freeing us. When this struggle started, that video of Gojidinka's presentation went viral, and our people knew right away that we are not Southern Cameroonians anymore. We are Ambazonians. And so we need to decide whether we are Southern Cameroonians or Ambazonians. Those who talk about Southern Cameroons, or that we should call ourselves Southern Cameroons, they say, oh, we are, that's our name in history, and so we need to maintain that until we liberate ourselves. No, nobody in the international community really cares about our history. Nobody really cares. Okay? Because if they cared, they would have cared about 1608. Nobody even asked, how come there's an English population in a French colonial state? Nobody has ever asked that question. They know the story, but they know something just occurred to me as I've been speaking. It's bringing us back to our fighter. They know that in the world, and I think Honorable Thibault Nash, the former Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, did say on the show that geopolitics trumps legality. So those who still want to stick with that legality, that legally we were known as this, and so we're known as Southern Cameroon, so if you come and call us Ambazonia now, they will ask, no. The geopolitics has wiped up that history, and that geopolitics can buy the gun. That is what geopolitics really means. It means that he who has the biggest gun determines what will happen. And so let's choose what our fighting name would be. Is our fighting name going to be Southern Cameroons, or is it going to be Ambazonia? It confuses people. And this was Gojidinka's argument. It confuses people when you go around saying you're Southern Cameroons in a country that calls itself Cameroon. La République du Cameroon, and that's how we start calling Cameroon La République du Cameroon. We're trying to distinguish them from ourselves. And La République du Cameroon is just a French appellation. In English, they just call themselves Cameroon. They go everywhere now, they call themselves Cameroon. They don't want to call themselves La République du Cameroon because that will be separating themselves from us. And we are their breadbasket, we are their economic, everything that they've gotten. Okay? So when you say Southern Cameroons, it fits into the Cameroon narrative. Okay? So You can decide to create your own identity, your own brand that is separate from a very convoluted brand, a brand that nobody cares about and that people have written off. If you want to associate with that, then go ahead. Otherwise, so when I see our people write, they call Southern Cameroon / Ambazonia, that is, let's not be doing that. Let's decide what our fight is. Are we going to win this legally, or are we going to win it by fighting? If we're going to win it by fighting, let's call ourselves what we want to be called and start imposing ourselves on the world. Because that is how our liberation will come about. If we make our case well, there'll be some people who will help us. But that we're waiting for the UN or some foreign legal entity to come and say, hey, here are these legal people who were maltreated and their countries seized and there's no justice here, so have your country. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So we are Ambazonians. That's the first thing I would say about our liberation fighters. That don't stop saying Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. Just say you are Ambazonians. And that will be it. That will be it. So, I just want to go step by step in what they said, because I have the idea is wonderful. I just want us to take some time, refine it, organize properly so that we succeed, because you, our ground fighters, are the owners of our struggle. You will be our heroes. You are the head of the spear. If you blunt yourself somehow or don't exist, then Ambazonia is gone. So let's correct our mistake. I think you started the first correction by assuming authority. I listened to a piece where one of the representatives, the communication representative, is telling Capo Daniel to go and bury himself in Hong Kong where he is and stop interfering in their affairs. I love that. I love that. I love that. So, before I read all of this, let me say that our ground forces, they are beginning to come together. But that process is not completed yet. And I know you too know that that process is not completed yet. Because until we become one very oiled, or until you, our fighters, become one very oiled machine on the ground, controlling every area, and where every knob turns or every wheel turns, you are in control of it, there will still be parts of it that are loose, and those can cause problems. So keep coming together until you become one big oil machine that runs the place and runs the struggle. And once you've done that, then I think you'll also be speaking clearer, because you're not even able to speak clear about this taxation thing you're talking about, which I say is a recommended idea. Because Ambazonians will have to fund their liberation by themselves. There are no big brothers. La République is funded by the French using international financial institutions to fund the colonization of La République du Cameroon. It is the wrong kind of funding, but they're having it, and their citizens are taking the nkendes that they get from there and come and help themselves in our land. So we need to fund our liberation. And if we fund it, we'll win, no doubt. Our boys have proven time and time again that that in an equal fight, La République will live running. But they need funding. And that's what they're trying to get from this taxation. But to get it, our fighters, you need to organize yourself well first. Because when you don't organize yourself, then you start doing things like I'm going to mention here. I'm going to mention one before I come to it. One is, for example, you say, "Oh, fund whichever general you want to fund, or whichever movement." No, that you can't be doing that. You can't be doing that. But let me go through this the way I wanted to, so that I cover every point. So, compulsory taxations. The first point you talked about was that every country needs to collect its taxes. You see, you are imposing this tax. You're already doing it as a government, and government control themselves. So organize yourself well as one force so you can implement this policy well. So, and that's what I just came from talking about you organizing on the ground in order to be better, much in control of everything. You can't allow a penny to go to somebody that you don't control. Yes, so taxes must be paid for the liberation to continue. Tax evasion is punishable to the full extent of the law. Yes. Who would do that punishment? You can't punish in fragments. You can't punish. You can't even determine who should be punished when you're asking people to scatter their money all around. So if somebody, does it mean any group that just goes and forms itself on the ground and call themselves a general and they can get money now when you don't know what type of a general they are or what they're doing with the money? No. So keep organizing, then we'll refine all of this. Everyone must commit to pay a liberation tax. Yes, we all should. We all should. I think there's another place where this is better addressed. Because I think there's a point where you're saying where it was written that they thought that people can contribute voluntarily. But no, Ambazonians in the diaspora contributed huge sums of money voluntarily, but they went to thieves and the money was stolen by people who are appointed from Nigeria, not people that Ambazonians in America selected. And that's what happens with this organization. You lose so much. But let's learn from those lessons. Every citizen has the right to choose which liberation movement to fund. No. Form yourselves well. Decide where this money you're asking for, where it will go to, and then you count the money and then keep it and then use it for the purpose. Don't open it and say, oh, choose who you want to give money to, whether we control them or we don't control them, give them the money. Are you working for them? You can't be working for people you don't control. So no, if you want money coming to you to do the people's business with that money, direct where that money should go. And let it go into some trusted hands. And then those hands, then you would have control of the money to do the things you want to do with the money. Don't say contribute to whoever and you'll be okay. It's not okay. Freedom fighters control the payments of these taxes at checkpoints. I don't even know how you do that. So we need standardization, my friends. I think I don't need to I don't need to spend more time on this because I think you get the point. Because if somebody stays on the ground now and say, I'm a general, and he doesn't find the contributed money and send to him, or they don't even send money to him, they just tell you we send the money to him. So there's need for centralization, organization, and documentation. Maybe all of this should not be spoken on social media, but you get the point. Because what you do here is just victimize anybody. Because if if somebody contributed their money to somebody that you can't verify, and they just came and say, I contributed to this money to this person, how do they prove it to you? How? So let's make something clear so that we don't create victims out of our people and don't, create bigger problems for ourselves than we already have. Because that's what this statement here would resolve to. Diaspora must show proof of payment of liberation tax. How? How? You must say how. You must say what is the proof. You can't say I should bring my own proof. Everybody bring their own proof. Then you have to accept every proof, whether it's proof or not. And some of it will just be a word of mouth. So you have to decide that here is who you will contribute to, and this is the document they will give you, or this is the code they will give you, or whatever is decided, and it has to be the same for everybody. So organization and definition and structures are needed. Any general of your choice? Nope. We're not sending any money. I'm talking about these recommended structures of payment. You say pay to any general of your choice. Wrong idea. There will be the fighters should come together like they're already coming. If you haven't come together close enough, come together close enough, so that you can decide who will be collecting for you, and that person should be your agent. That person get that authority to collect from you. And then they have to account for the money to you. And then you take that money, you do your job, and then you account to the people who gave you the money through their taxes. Because, taxes, I know in Ambazonia we pay taxes and our roads are still bad. That's a bad government. You don't want to be that. Because normally, when you pay your taxes, you should see the result of those taxes in the good roads, the good schools, the beautiful life, the beautiful common life that we create for ourselves as a people with their government. So let's be a little more organized about this matter. I also had a problem with the amount. If you say contribute $1 per month, that is too small. I think you're better off just letting the people who are contributing thousands right now continue to contribute and say everybody should contribute $1 a month. $1 a month is not enough. $1 a month is not, if you know what $1 a month, I know when $1 comes down to Ambazonia, it's about $500. Right now it's about 630 francs. I was going to say francs. In normal times, $1 to an American, to somebody living in the United States, is 500 francs. 500 Colonial francs in Ambazonia. Right now, it's 630. But let me tell you, the minimum wage in the United States, I want to say $7 an hour, but it's not. It's more about 15 right now. So you're saying out of 160 hours that an Ambazonian works in a month, they should give you $1, which is not even, I don't want to do the math here, but imagine somebody making $15 an hour. You're asking him to give you $1 in a month. We can do better. We can do better. We can do better by indexing. We can find ways to make it so that if in Ambazonia, what the average citizen can contribute is 500 francs, then let that be 500 francs. But in the United States, people in the United States can do way better. So consult my people. Consult with people in America, in Germany, in Britain, wherever they are. Consult with them and see how much they will recommend that you then impose on them. Because I think even in taxation, you pay according to your ability. Okay? You don't give a flat tax. That is very unfair to the poor. Okay? So let's do progressive taxation, so that people in the diaspora, they pay more because they make more. Okay? So there's a lot yet to go into this whole thing. Let's do that. Arrest of diasporans until tax is paid. Well, you can see, you cannot target and arrest diasporans. Why are you concentrating on? All our citizens should face the same standard. Pay different amounts, but face the same penalties if that payment is not made. Okay, don't single diasporans that you would punish them more, and then people who are not in the diaspora, you will not make them pay their own. You still will. But let's work on this. I know where you're trying to go with this, and I know why you are emphasizing on some of this, but we can do it so that it's more equitable and actually make the people pay voluntarily, because you are not implementing, you are not trying to punish the people in the diaspora to give you some money. You are trying to say, we have a big fight in our hands, let's work together and fight it. If we take that approach, we'll do better. I think we'll do better. Because the people in the diaspora are not resisting to support. It's just that the disorganization has made it so that their money was going into lazy idiots hiding in the West and not coming to you. And that's why they stopped contributing. So people are not contributing in the diaspora because they don't want to contribute. No, they just want a good system. And that's why I'm saying, establish that good system, establish who they should pay to, and that the money will come to you, then they will pay. Because all Ambazonians want the colonizers out. No citizen will be killed for not paying. No, we shouldn't be killing our own for any reason. Abuse of taxation collection shall not be tolerated. Yes. And there will be no abuse, really, if you set up properly and pick a particular or appoint. I always like to use the word appoint because I think one of the people who really knew how to manage the United States very well was John Frundi. He appointed Bojong, and Bojong collected money from him. There was no ambiguity where all SDF money went. It went to Atlanta, Georgia, where Bojong was resident. So let's continue. Let's learn from that. Appoint your own agent who will be doing your collection. Then that agent in every country where they are will find a way of collecting that money and giving them the proof that you're looking for. I would assume that that proof will not be a document that would then start making your own citizen that you want to protect vulnerable to the colonialists who now catch the paper with them and say, oh, you're supporting the kicking us out. So let's do this thing intelligently and do a lot of consultation with people in the different areas. And it's a beautiful system. I think you are beginning to really create what will finally take us home. I just want you to take the time to do it right. Because if you do it right, you're going to win. We are going to win. No doubt.